The 15-Point Plan is part of the Win, Make, Give podcast network.
Welcome to the 15-Point Plan podcast. Chad Himes here, joined as always by the effervescent Jillene Snell. Jillene, how are you today?
I'm so good, Chad, and I'm happy to be here because we have such an amazing guest.
We do. This is not a normal episode on the 15-Point Plan. Usually it's you and I bantering back and forth and arguing, debating, discussing, busting myths, whatever it might be. But today we are bringing on a guest, and I love the opportunities when we do have these episodes where we bring on somebody. And folks, we don't want to bring you just anybody. Here at the 15-Point Plan, we want to bring you the best of the best. So before we even introduce whom we're going to be bringing on, we got to give a shout out to one of our listeners, and that's Marisol, because she's the one who made this connection happen. So 15-Point Plan listeners, if there's somebody you know we should be talking to, you need to message Jillene or I, reach out to one of us and help us make these conversations happen. Because Jillene,
yes,
you and I both have this tool in our home.
We do.
Okay. We also know Ben Kinney has this tool somewhere in his home. He just doesn't use his. We both are very consistent about using our Peloton. What's your favorite single thing to do in the world of Peloton, Jillene?
Well, it's definitely riding the bike, but what people don't know is all of the other exercises that Peloton provides. Like they have an app and you can do this on a desktop or an app. You can go in and choose from so many options, like this menu of exercise. And I've done almost all of them, but one of my favorites to really calm my body and my mind and sort of recenter myself is yoga. What about you, Chad?
Yeah, I was going to say bike for me, and once again, bike for me. If I had to do something other than the bike, I'm probably doing an outdoor run where I'm taking Matt on a run with me in my ears, telling me to speed up and slow down. Because, well, yoga, come on, Jillene. That's such a not Chad thing to do. It involves stretching, touching my toes, that calm meditation moment. Right. I have a feeling at the end of today's interview, I might change my thoughts on that.
Yes, it could be a good exercise for you to do prior to recording your podcast, right? Bring out the calm, Chad.
No, that's no fun. The audience doesn't want to hear that, Chad. But here's what the audience does want to hear, because they don't want to hear from me and they don't want to hear from you anymore. No, they want to hear from our guest today. And I'm going to hope I say it just right as I say Mariana, right? And I got my hand in there and everything. It's Mariana Fernandez. Did I get that right, Mariana?
Perfect.
Yes.
Hi, Chad. Hi,
excellent.
Jillene. How are you?
We are so glad to have you here with us. You are one of the powerful Peloton Yoga instructors. We really appreciate you taking the time and coming and joining us here on the 15-Point Plan podcast.
No, that's right. I'm part of the Peloton family. And again, you gave Marisol a shout out. I've been practicing yoga with Marisol here in New York. And so we made that connection. I'm really, really excited to be here with both of you.
Well, we appreciate her for connecting us and you for joining us. We've got a list of questions, yet I've got to just ask, we like to have you introduce yourself to our audience. Maybe a little bit about your history. Jillene was completely amazed. I found some things out about you and Mom, which I thought were pretty powerful. As we jump into these questions we have with you, can you start for our audience, though, and tell us a little bit about who you are?
Absolutely. So I'm Mariana, and I was born in Mexico, born and raised in Tampico, Mexico. And then my parents moved to San Diego for a job in the early 90s. So I grew up as a border girl in California. And right off the bat, we were from the tropics in Mexico, lived in San Diego. So we were water babies. I was an athlete through and through. I swam competitively for 15 years. Did my first marathon at 17. So come from a very athletic background. I studied theater in college and grad school, which led me to New York City. And while in grad school, I got certified to teach yoga. I'll get a little more into the background of that. But ultimately, that athleticism, the arts, and like I said, the asana, the practice of yoga has been what brought me to this platform.
That's incredible. There's a lot there, Mariana. And I just feel your passion through your voice. And it's one of my favorite things about you, just having met you. And I imagine that comes a lot from the things that you experienced growing up. But would you tell us a little bit more about what brings on this passion for you for yoga?
Well, I'm moving here. I'm very connected to my family. That is very much a part of who I am, to be close to them. And I'm very inspired by them. My mother has run over 35 marathons. So like I said, yeah, very on the bike. We were Peloton members before I even started working for the company, because my brother is also an Ironman triathlete. So sports and athleticism have been a big part of my upbringing, and just the passion that sports brings to your life, the fitness and what it can do and how it can change your life. And so when I encountered yoga when I was in my early 20s, to me, it felt very foreign. I was like you, Chad. I said, I'm an athlete through and through. I can't touch my toes. I don't know what this is. I don't know if it's for me. But because I was in the arts, I noticed that we started using some of the breathing techniques for some of our classes for theater, for acting. And so I started to get a little bit into it. And I remember it was in college. I was taking a geology class. I had a geology final, rocks, and I was really stressed out. And it was cold. I was in Texas. I was like, I need to sweat. And I found a hot yoga studio. I was like, I guess this can do, I need to calm down. I need to breathe. I think this helps with your breathing. And then I remember the feeling of coming out of that class. I didn't know what I was doing, but the way that my body felt and the way that my mind felt after those 60 minutes in that room, the challenges that it presented, because there was a level of athleticism in that class. And there was also something really powerful that wasn't just happening to the muscles in the body, but I felt like my anxiety released, that I was breathing, that I was more connected to how I moved. And I said, this has something. This has something that kind of like I feel the runner's high, or when I get off the bike. Similarly, I feel like I'm in a better place once I finish. And it presented these nuanced challenges. And so I started to get into it. A lot of patience with it. But ultimately, it led me to do a teacher training and eventually teach it.
Wow. That again, like Jillene said before, your passion, and there's just so much in there to unpack that you already talked about. So you just mentioned you started this in your 20s. I also had a theater background, so maybe you're doing a good job of just sucking me into it and saying, well, Chad, it's theater background makes yoga natural with the breathing and the movement that we did in there. How long were you a yoga student before you started to become a yoga instructor so that you could get all those moves down? Because the few times I've attempted it, I just feel like a complete fool falling all over the place.
That was part of what I liked about it, that because it made me so uncomfortable in just the exploration of it, because my muscles were very tight, because again, it was something that was very foreign, but I knew that I could start chipping away at these little victories, kind of like you do, like a 5K. Great. That was my first goal. And then maybe it was making it to a 10K, and then maybe the half marathon right after that. It was similar to some of the arm balances, or even holding a warrior too. My hamstrings were so tight. It was like, next time I'm going to try to get my legs a little more away from each other, my arms a little bit more open. So just to have those little victories within one yoga class, I knew that that's what I wanted to come back to and do. And so once I felt a little more comfortable with the vocabulary. I saw this teacher training program when I was in graduate school. And they tell you sometimes with teacher training, like sometimes it's just to further and explore, it's for the depth of your own practice. It's not even about teaching. It's just to really immerse yourself in the history of yoga, the philosophy, the meditation aspect, the postures, the practice of it. And I said, I'm really digging this and I'm really into it. So let me just see what it can do for me. Not thinking that I would ever teach it. But I was teaching acting for non-majors in grad school. And I noticed that I started implementing some of the yoga techniques and teacher training toolkit that I had gotten just for my own practice. So in Lafayette, Indiana, I went to grad school at Purdue. We opened one of the first yoga studios over there just to have access to that for a lot of the engineering students that were there. And from there, I was like, maybe I can teach this. Maybe I do like sharing this and making yoga accessible, because that was part of why it felt too foreign for me. It was, how do you incorporate music? How can you bring an athletic background or an artistic background and incorporate it into anything else that you do in your life?
That's incredible. You're really looking big picture there. And some of the pieces I took from what you've just shared with all of us is that you started as an athlete and you were looking to grow, right? And I think some of us, we don't consider ourselves athletes, but we exercise all of the time and haven't yet incorporated yoga into our routines, or maybe even tried a first class. So we don't really know what the benefits are. And you've sort of talked about some of these benefits and in like the mindset that can be developed, the core strengthening, the stretching, right? The music, the community, and there's so many things you mentioned there. What are some of the other biggest benefits of doing yoga, or even taking your classes on Peloton, that you might recommend to either an athlete or someone like me who works out frequently but does not consider themselves an athlete?
Well, and that's part of the beauty of the Peloton platform, is that you have all these different options. If you want to do a 10-minute standing class because you just are short on time, if you want to do a 5-minute basic class where you explore what a warrior two is or what one of the poses, you have that option to cater and do it to whatever you need. A 20-minute class, a 45-minute class, beginner level, intermediate, advanced level. So there's plenty of options for you depending on what you're looking for. And I found, especially because, like I said, I was a bike and a tread member of Peloton, I love this kind of interconnectivity of all the disciplines, because I know that I'm training for the New York Marathon right now. I'm a much better runner because I practice yoga, because I supplement my running and my bike rides with 2 or 3 times a week of a yoga practice to help my muscles, to loosen them up. My core is stronger than it ever has been, because a lot of my classes focus on core work. And I promise you, I make them fun. We put good music. There will always be a good playlist on there. So even if you're not doing the pose, maybe you're singing along, which I always encourage. So it's just a beautiful way to, whatever it is that you do, even if you're working all day and working from home, maybe, to get yourself up, get yourself moving, get your body just changing shapes and moving in different directions, to incorporate a little bit of breathing, and you really start to feel a shift.
Sure.
I say that the 3 benefits of yoga is that I see are prana, which means life force. It's connecting your breath to your movement. And anytime that you practice, you see that immediate connection. You're very aware of it. The next thing is posture, not just in your physical posture and like how it benefits your body, but I think in an outlook in life, I think that it just really is a good healer for your mental health, for your spiritual health, and then ultimately progress. That's the third P, because you're going to be, every time that you show up on the mat, you'll see that you get a little bit better. You'll have those little goals that you want to achieve, whether it's going upside down, doing an arm balance, going from a 20-minute class to a 45-minute class. There's always progress that you can make.
I love that you did it as the 3 Ps of yoga, right? So we've got something catchy that we can sell or we can promote. And I don't know about you, Jillene, but as soon as Mariana said posture, I sat up in my chair. I just had to fix my posture because she just looks like she's sitting up so perfectly as a yoga expert over there. Okay, so you caught my ear again. You mentioned you're training for the New York Marathon. God bless you for doing it, right? I don't know that I want to run that far ever again. But talk about yoga and then cross-training benefits. So what exercises would you insert into, that weekly rhythm? How would you balance running, cycling? What would you tell the perfect Peloton user? Heck, what would you tell the person who's not even using Peloton yet about you should yoga probably this many days a week, and throw in some of this to really get the best benefits?
Well, and you just use the keyword right there, balance. Like, how do you put enough amount of this with enough amount of this to really get you in a good place for whatever goal you have for yourself? So if I know that I have to log in miles, which endurance training is what I love and what I'm passionate about. Uh, I have long runs, power zone rides where I'm Matt Wilpers and Dennis, they're my guys. I know that between those days, I will put in, we have at Peloton, we have focus flow, so a hamstring focus day. I will always incorporate one of the strength classes or the yoga classes focus on core because we have those focus as well. I want to make sure that my core stays strong, even though I'm working my legs, because you use the core while you train for running. You use the core while you're on the bicycle. So I make sure to accommodate and fit in. So I'm not packing in 3 full straight days of running or 3 straight days of bike riding. I try to measure them out, as well as a necessary and essential rest day, because that's part of it. That's part of the training as well, and I include on the daily a meditation practice, because I know that my body can't be ready to go and move and withstand those long hours if my mind isn't in a good headspace or I can find that clarity. So some people like to meditate at night, sometimes during the day, sometimes in the morning. But if you just give yourself 5 minutes to kind of launch with that, and that I think ultimately completes the balance of physical, mental, and then just that emotional part of your training.
There's a lot of balance to what you're saying, you're incorporating in your weekly routine. Now, how often do you think a person who seeks balance should do yoga?
And that'll depend on there's people who practice every single day. There's people that incorporate it maybe once or twice a week. I think it's how your body's feeling it. And with the beauty of it, kind of like with every sport, sometimes I know that I'll go periods of time where I stop doing it, maybe like I'm not craving it as much. The mat is always there to welcome you back. That's the beautiful part of it, that you can always hop back on that bike. She'll be there. So it's just kind of seeing where you are, and also knowing, like with when you're on the bike, on the tread, on strength training, listening to where you are, knowing that sometimes we get so excited. So maybe you accomplish a 5K and all of a sudden you're like, well, I'm going to run a marathon. That might not be the best idea. So it's the same thing with yoga. You get the bug, you start like, oh, I really like this. But it's knowing where your body is and meeting yourself exactly where you are. Maybe it's going to take a little longer to get into handstands or to get those hamstrings open for a full splits. But that's like with everything in life, it's a marathon. Mm-hmm. It is a marathon. So you have to stay patient. You have to work mile by mile, piece by piece to get to those goals that you want to get to.
Okay. I love meeting your body where you are.
I love the mat welcoming me back. I mean, you speak in such. I mean, you say the music is fun. This is not the yoga that I knew. This is not the yoga we grew up with, which was all these weird positions and all this strange incense burning in a room and all these things. No, it sounds to me like it's almost like a rock and roll concert coming to one of your sessions, Mariana.
Come to one of my power classes. Power yoga is that's my favorite thing to teach, and every week we vary it up. I love playing Metallica and Pearl Jam. I love to play Depeche Mode in those classes, because for me, I always say, I'm your cheerleader. I'm there to guide you. Ultimately, it's what your body can do. You modify, you create variations according to what your own body can do. I'm just going to press play. We're going to take this journey, whether it's 30 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever you want to do. And just, my quote is, experience your own resilience. You're going to show yourself how strong you are. I think you surprise yourself every time you go onto that mat, because once you're connected to the movement, once you're just breathing through all these postures and taking that journey with me, at the end, you'll feel, I hope, it is my hope that you will feel stronger, you will feel better, and that maybe Chad, you just enjoyed that yoga practice.
I might. Who knows? You'll have to watch for me on the leaderboard there as I go to find one of your classes. Look, so you take a yoga class. You can't teach all the yoga classes. You have to take a yoga class. Who are some of your favorites to take? I'm going to just put you on the spot right now. And, wasn't planned. I didn't warn you this question was coming. But who are some of your favorite yoga instructors?
the beauty about yoga, like we said with the platform, is that you have so many different options. So if I want to work on the biomechanics of like how my postures are looking, because I know that especially with this training, like my hips are a little tighter, hamstrings are a little tighter, quads are tighter. So I go to Ross. Ross is my biomechanics guru. He will really break down and align you to find the perfect fit for the posture. If I'm feeling a little more soul and I just kind of want to flow and vibe, Chelsea Jackson Roberts is my girl all the time. She's got great music as well. If I want to challenge myself to go upside down, maybe, find a new goal, work on a little strength training, Kira Michelle is our new Australian instructor. Her classes are great. Dennis Morton, love him on the bike. We'll flip the screen around. We'll take one of his power classes because that voice and his sequencing are top notch. So I really like to mix it up because I get tired of my own teaching and my own sequences. So I want a little variety. I want a little spice.
I could see that. And I was actually writing notes as you were sharing those things. So I think I have my list for the queue. So thank you for that and giving that to the audience. Mariana, what would you say to someone who has very little time to devote to their practice, but really, their heart is with yoga and they love doing yoga. They have limited time. I know Peloton offers a variety of short and long sessions. Is there anything else that you'd add to that?
Especially, I have one of my students that I've known for a long time. He recently had an ankle injury. And so sometimes health injuries can be setbacks, but luckily there's options. There's a chair yoga class that you can take. So we just encourage you to keep your body moving. We have the Yoga Anywhere series where you have 5 or 10 minutes and maybe you've been on a long road trip or you've been standing in line. So what are some postures? What are some movements that you can do to try to get the kinks out, to get the muscles and the joints to breathe a little bit? And you have those options, like you said, on your phone, on the app. So it doesn't necessarily have to be close to your bicycle or your tread. You can access those anywhere you are. So
you could be in your office and just turn on 5 minutes, to have a little break in between, right at the office. Just
exactly.
I'm doing it right now. I'm Warrior something or something.
Yes.
But if you're sitting there interviewing and you have a full day lined up, just the ability to give yourself a moment to stand up, maybe move your neck, get your hips a little more open, just let your body breathe a little bit, going back to that posture. Like, how do we get back to just giving space and providing movement?
I always thought it was
really. Go ahead, Chad.
No, I was going to say, I always thought it was strange when my wife would be brushing her teeth. She always ended up in I think it's called tree pose.
Yeah.
So I think that's what that one's called, but that's how she does when she's brushing her teeth. Where one foot's bent at your knee and the right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's how Nita does when she brushes her teeth. She's sitting there doing some yoga poses sometimes even.
Brilliant.
And exactly like you said, sometimes, and you asked what classes to take, because sometimes you're craving to do a little balance, maybe just working on that. Sometimes you're craving to find a little more flexibility because you find a little tightness that you're holding on to a lot of tension. Sometimes you're craving just a class on breath work. There's something for whatever mood, whatever you're in the mood for in that moment, you'll have that.
That's awesome. All right. So let me ask you this. What other aspects of yoga, you've talked about so many, but what other aspects of yoga might we have missed that you want to make sure we address? So our audience, when they finish with this episode, they're all like me saying, heck yeah, I'm going to finally take a yoga class and do it.
The beauty of yoga is that there's so many elements to it. The practice is just one of them. So you can dive into philosophy. And I know that, Kira's classes delve more into that part of it, or Aditi's classes. Or you also have, if maybe the movement part isn't what's speaking to you, meditation is part of the yoga practice. I like to focus a lot on the asana, on the physical practice of it, because for me, that was what made it accessible. As an athlete, I was like, what is it that will allow me to enter this world so that it doesn't feel so foreign? So I feel like it's also part of my toolkit for whether it was auditioning and going on stage or training for the triathlon. Yoga has served as one of the biggest tools for everything that I've done. And it's just, it sometimes has taken a primary focus, like teaching right now, but I've noticed how I have implemented it into everything else that I do.
That's incredible. And it sounds like there's so many different starting points for someone who is just looking to take their first class, depending on what their needs are, or again, how they feel that day. So thank you for breaking that down for us and just showing us what's possible, that there's so much to it that can benefit both the body and the mind. So just appreciate hearing everything you shared. And I wanted to ask you one of our closing questions, which is, what has changed for you now that you've joined the world of Peloton?
Oh my goodness. Well, this is really, when I think about just my journey here, from being a member and using the platform, especially during probably one of the most difficult years that a lot of us had to go through, and having a sense of community, because, theater was up in the air. A lot of things were up in the air last year. So having a place to go to where not only I could stay physically active, but I felt like I could reach out, and we had these groups for people to connect. And then all of a sudden, a few months later, I'm interviewing, and I get to be on this platform that really is the perfect cocktail of my theater background, of my athletic background, of my passion for yoga. All of these things come together. Even my little sister makes fun of me because growing up, she's like, why do you know all this music? Like, how do you know all these bands? Like, why do you know all these songs? And now I get to use all of that as I make playlists, to teach a class. And especially for me, to be able to teach in English and to also our Spanish speaking community, because I teach in both languages, to open up the world of fitness and yoga to our Spanish speaking members and our English speaking members. That is, when I think of my parents coming to this country and the opportunities that they wanted for us, I am living that dream right now.
Wow.
I love it. What words do you finish that by? Go ahead, Jillene.
Thank you for sharing your story with us and for inspiring so many around the globe. And we look forward to seeing you on Peloton. And also, for me, like, I didn't know that within Peloton, you had so many options, this menu of options that can feed both the mind and the body. And we're grateful to get to know you and what you offer within that. And I hope that you can continue to create what I know Peloton calls this collective, right? This community. And so I hope some of our audience will come and find you there.
No, thank you. And thank you for this opportunity to be able to share the things that I'm passionate about. And Chad, I know that I will see you on that leaderboard very soon. I may hear back.
I'll be there. So for all of our audience out there, Jillene, share with us your leaderboard name for anybody who's Pelotoning that wants to follow you and keep an eye and join you on any programs.
Mine is going to blow you away. It's just Jillene.
Wow.
I know.
Fantastic. I went through a few leaderboard names at first, and I found some of the cycling instructors couldn't necessarily pronounce them for shout outs. So I made it a lot easier. And just to help people spelling my last name, it's H_Yams, right? It's not how it's pronounced, but it's how it's spelt. So H_Yams is me. If you're looking me for on the leaderboard, you can also, when you join Peloton and you're using it, you can follow the hashtag #WinMakeGive, which is the network that the 15-point plan is a part of, so that you can become part of our family on the Peloton world and become part of our community. Now, you can also join us facebook.com/group/WinMakeGive, so you can come into conversation about episodes like this, because we're going to want to ask you about your yoga experiences in the group. Before we let you go, I'm not going to sing, but am I correct in having heard that today is your birthday and you took time on your birthday to actually interview with us?
No kidding.
Yeah. This is the best birthday present. I get to share what I'm passionate about. I get to speak to people that are part of this community, and we're growing. I'm Tia Mariana NYC on the leaderboard, and that's been my Instagram handle. I'm your favorite yoga Tia. And I encourage you to try something new. I'm your cheerleader. So what better way to celebrate than to grow this family and share with you all?
Happy birthday.
All right. So on behalf of Jillene, on behalf of Marisol for helping set this up, and on behalf of Mariana for joining us, we want to thank Peloton for giving us the opportunity to be able to actually connect with you and share with our audience. Audience, we hope you will share this episode with people who are saying, yoga, yuck, because I know if they listen to this episode like I did, they'll be doing a yoga class within the next 24 hours because of your passion, Mariana. Thank you for joining us, and we hope that this episode, as always, ups your energy and takes you to the next level.